And hello YouTube, this is Thomas Judge back once again, and this time doing something a little bit different that I haven't done on camera very much before. I'm going to do a custom bind, or prep for a custom bind, but it's not a custom bind, it's a custom unbind, or what I call a custom redaction. So, to start off with, no further ado, I have the DC 1 million Omnibus. Massive thick omnibus, thicker than a Snicker. This is an event from 1998 led by Grant Morrison. I'm a massive fan of Grant Morrison's work on the JLA and on the X-Men and the general sort of flagship titles that they've done. I own the original trade paperback of this, which was like 5 or 6 issues long or something. It only had the issues penned by Grant Morrison. And so when I found out they were doing an entire omnibus of the entire event with all 42 issues that tie in, I think maybe they only collected 41 of the 42 issues, but nonetheless, you know, I thought they're getting the whole omnibus. Awesome, I will collect it. And the thing is, obviously, not only is it the entire event, it's also the entire event with oversized artwork. So it sits next to my JLA oversized hardcovers on my shelf. I am aware the JLA omnibus is out. I prefer the oversized hardcover format because it's a little bit more manageable. And frankly, from my point of view, although I like omnibuses, obviously big omnibus fan, I'm not a huge fan of the incredibly thick DC style omnibuses. So Blackest Night, for example, is unfeasibly large. This is pretty thick, to be fair. But anyway, I've never actually read the entire event before. I read it relatively recently, and I made the disappointing discovery that quite a lot, in fact, the majority of the issues in here were not very good. So there's 42 issues in total, and of those 42 issues, I can happily confirm that only 11 of them are any good. And all the rest are varying degrees of rubbish. So as a result, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these to my binder, or take this omnibus to my binder, and I'm going to ask them to remove the issues I don't like and keep the issues that I do. So to do that, my binder is not a guy who's into comics, so what I need to do is I need to very clearly demarcate exactly what this means and exactly which issues need to go. Now I could use post-its, I could write it all down, but you never know if someone's going to get that right or wrong or get the post-its muddled, simply because, you know, someone's not a comic fan, they're not a comic fan. Which is why, brace yourselves, I both love and hate the sound of this. Yep. Yeah, you saw it. You saw it. I did it. Right, this is a Shadow of the Bat issue. This was actually quite good. It's followed by a Nightwing issue, which is also quite good. I'm not going to do a reading order or a reading map of this event here. I actually read this as part of my overall read-through of Superman. I'm reading the entirety of Superman from 1991 to 2011, and whilst I'm doing that, I'm sort of picking up on every major DC event in the interim, and that means basically reading all things like this. Oh, Green Lantern, you gotta go. So yeah, at some point in the next few months I'm going to do a reading guide of all of Superman, and when I do that I'm going to intersperse that reading guide with reading guides to DC events. So that's everything from like, well, Death of Superman is a line-wide event, but I'm talking about universe-wide events, so things like Final Night and DC 1 million, things like that. Okay, that was the Shazam issue. Hopefully this isn't traumatizing anyone too much. If it is, well, you were warned. Okay. As I do this video, I'm probably going to forward through and like jump edit quite a lot of it. Otherwise, it's going to be a 15-minute video of me sitting here in silence, just cutting bits of paper. I'm sure there's someone out there with a fetish for that sort of content, but we want to cater to that. Just to point out, I'm now trimming the issue of Batman. Yes, Batman. Unfortunately, the issue of Batman was not very good in this. I was hoping for some pretty mad stuff, but I can only imagine what this would have been done if it were done more recently. This would have been something about all the different future alternatives of Batman's villains in the 853rd century. But as it was, this just didn't come across well. They introduced like the future version of Catwoman from the 853rd century, and also a bit underwhelming. It occurs to me as I go through this that I should actually probably mention what the DC 1 million event is briefly, because I guess it'll be in the tags for this video on YouTube and people will come across it as a result. So basically, it was during Grant Morrison's 10 years writing the JLA, and essentially, apropos of basically nothing, the JLA from the future, from the 853rd millennium, believe it or not, actually get in touch with the current JLA, and they're like, hey, we'd like you to come to the future and just essentially have a big party. Genuinely, that's basically the storyline. And then they do, and things end up going horribly, horribly wrong. And it's a 4-issue core miniseries written by Grant Morrison. It crosses over into 38 other titles, give or take. And yeah, it's actually a decent event. It's kind of the usual kind of mad meta Grant Morrison stuff, like spanning over tens of thousands of years, etc., etc. Hang on, what's this? This is the Green Arrow issue. Yeah. I did enjoy it. I had the trade paperback, and I was like, this is cool. This is another part of Grant Morrison JLA, which was like loads of fun to read, and I really enjoyed. And so then this event kind of just spins out of that. You might wonder why it's the 853rd millennium with such a degree of precision. Apparently, if Action Comics #1, which was the issue in 1930-something where Superman was first sort of revealed to the world, if that published 1 million issues, keep in mind we're on 1,000 and something at the moment, if it published 1 million issues, the 1,000th issue would come out in the 853rd century. That's just how Morrison likes to think about things, I guess. So hence the sort of the contrivance of this event. They've got a weird, quirky kind of perspective to line-wide events or universe-wide events. I do remember when they were writing New X-Men, which is after the JLA run, and they had the Nuff Said month, which was essentially a month where Marvel had all the issues without any words in them at all. And again, that was something I think was spearheaded by Morrison. This is Azrael. Azrael is an interesting issue because it's actually called The Sword of Azrael. There was never a series called Sword of Azrael. There was Azrael, which had 47 issues. Then there was this DC 1 million crossover issue, or tie-in issue. And then it moved to rebranding itself as Azrael Shadow of the Bat. Random bit of quirky info for you there. But yeah, this one has to go. Okay, just so you know, this is an issue of a series called Chase, which I had never heard of beforehand. Chase is, from what I can tell, a little bit like Jessica Jones, which I haven't read, but I've watched the TV show and I've read about it, and she seems very cool. Chase seems very, very cool. This one issue is actually only barely related to the DC 1 million event. It's basically unrelated to it. But it was really cool. So, even though I guess it's a token event, that's only, the most nominal nod towards the event itself, I really enjoyed it, and I'm going to keep it in. Yeah, I'm going to keep it in. It's arbitrary, it's up to me, I'm going to keep it. A very fair question that long-time viewers of my channel will be asking is, what the hell am I doing? Why am I doing this when I could just custom print my own oversized hardcover? Because it's actually going to be a lot cheaper doing it this way. DC 1 million as an omnibus is not hard to find. I think I picked it up for like 40 quid. I think on Amazon it's like 40 or 50 quid because it's discounted at the moment. It's not out of print at all. So as a result of that, I'm kind of like, well, just doing this, like cutting the bits I don't like out and getting it rebound appropriately, is actually relatively cheap. I mean, it only cost me another, hopefully 40, 50 quid, give or take. So compare that to the cost of actually having a oversized hardcover made, plus, and this is something that cannot be underestimated, the time and effort of having an oversized hardcover made. I no longer am unemployed, and I'm no longer going through the kind of mental health issues I was going through during COVID, which is when I did some major projects like Custom Bound, Incorruptible and Irredeemable. So now, my life's kind of settling down back to normal, which I am very, very grateful for. And as a result of that, I'm kind of like, I don't have time to spend on this sort of stuff. There's other stuff I want to spend my time doing. Working on my novel, working on my artwork, playing video games, just that sort of stuff, more fun stuff. So as a result, with this, it's like, yeah, I could get it custom made, but instead, given I already had the omnibus, if I've had this lying around for 3 or 4 years, it just makes more sense to me just to have it sort of custom redacted, as I call it. That said, I don't really know what I'm going to name this video, but I'll have to come up with something cool to try and get people to realise what I'm talking about. It's worth pointing out that like I say, I'm making a reading order of all the DC events, and so this is one of the omnibuses which I've gone through and I've read. What I actually did is I actually mapped out the order of all the issues in the omnibus. I've compared it to online reading lists. It largely matches up, but not quite. And then what I've done is, as I've gone through and I've read it all, I've actually worked out for myself whether or not the reading order in the omnibus actually makes sense. And then what I do is I go through all the issues in the omnibus and I work out what the ideal reading order is by splitting things into 3 categories of issues, which is essential issues for the tie-in, related issues, and then token issues. So just let me have a quick look at my maths. For this, there were 7 essential issues, 14 token issues, and then 20 odd related issues. And what I noticed as well is that the order of issues in the omnibus isn't, I'll be honest, is not the ideal issue, which is annoying. I mean, it wasn't horrific, it wasn't sort of Marvel Spider-Verse or Spider-Get, what was it? Yeah, Spider-Verse hardcover incorrect, where it's literally unreadable. But I'll tell you what, like it's not ideal, and it's one of those things where again I go through these events and I look at reading orders and stuff online. And I'm just like, did no one else actually read? Did no one else actually read these issues? Because in a lot of cases, it's just really explicitly clear where they should be set. And either it says it right on the last page and it goes to be continued in, or there'll be some key event or some key mention of some key event in the issue where you're like, oh right, well that must have already happened, therefore this issue must have happened after it. Just to point out, this is the Supergirl issue, which was just ridiculous. It was horrific. I'm a massive Supergirl fan. This was terrible. This is the last issue of the entire event. But then after this event, you'll notice there's still a fairly substantial amount of the entire omnibus to go, and this is because there's a bunch of spin-off issues and random tie-in issues as well. This one is the 80-page giant, which has got 7 smaller stories inside it, most of which are rubbish. A couple of them are actually written by Grant Morrison, just FYI. Of this 80-page giant, I'm actually keeping the penultimate story, which is called A Day in the Lives, which is actually kind of cool. It's very short, but it's kind of cool. So, is it that one I'm keeping? Yeah, there it is. This is the last page. Shit, I guess to keep the last page I've got to keep this story as well. Well, it's not the end of the world. Alright, fine. Just so you know, this is an issue of Booster Gold called Booster Gold 1 million, so it's branded exactly like all those 1 million issues. This came out 10 years later in 2008, and it has absolutely nothing to do with the issues of DC 1 million. It has nothing to do with that event in the slightest. That said, it's actually a really good issue, and it made me really, really curious to read the Booster Gold series. However, collecting it here is an utter waste of time. It's literally got nothing to do with the 1 million event. So, and it also is not a decent standalone issue because it is the 6th of a 6-part series within the Booster Gold series of single issues. So having the finale for an event which is called, I want to say Black and Gold? Blue and Gold, conclusion. Like having this one issue here 10 years after the rest of the event, unrelated to the rest of the event, it's just stupid. So although it was cool, although I like the artwork, the writing's good as well, it's stupid having it here, isn't it? Right, this is a Superman Batman issue. There's actually a couple of these from the latter days of the Superman Batman series, which I wasn't a massive fan of. So, well, that's to say I wasn't a massive fan of the latter days, if nothing else. Alright, and there we are. I'm going to keep all the extra stuff in the back. There is an issue of DC 1 million or DC 1 million tie-in which isn't collected in the omnibus, but I won't talk about it here. I'll talk about that if and when I actually do a reading guide for this. So there we go. I hope everyone's not too badly traumatised. Anyway, this omnibus hopefully is going to come back to me substantially thinner. I reckon it's going to be, what, that long? That thick? Which I know is going to seem to a lot of people like a really bizarre thing for me to have done, but two things to keep in mind. One, these really thick omnibuses suffer from this. I don't know if you guys can see this, but essentially the binding is coming away from the cover because the omnibus is so heavy. This happens with a lot of really thick omnibuses. It happened to my Arkham game omnibus by DC, my Black is Night omnibus by DC, and it's a real pain. I mean, it doesn't happen with oversized hardcovers. It only happens with omnibuses that are this thick and therefore mainly the DC ones. So that's annoying. Secondly, getting this much space back on my shelf, which is enough for, yeah, I mean, quite a few other comics. That is worth quite a bit to me because I've only got a limited amount of space on my shelf. So if I can get that back, even if it means paying £40-50, that's great. And secondly, getting rid of all the issues that I don't want to read, so I don't have to plow through them or deal with them the next time I read this series, is worth it. I mean, look at this. Look at how much I'm getting rid of. That's insane. This is absolutely sorry. This is absolutely ridiculous. This like what the? Do you know what I mean? Like what? Like what planet? What planet is all this garbage necessary in? Anyway.
Alright, thanks for watching everybody. As always, please like, comment, subscribe. As always, please follow me on Twitter at @IamThomasJudge, where I will post a daily review of whatever comics I've been reading. You can get an idea of what I'm up to on the channel. And as always, please support the channel by heading over to Amazon.com and checking out my prose novel about superheroes. It's a completely original piece of work. The first episode in it is called Arrivals, and the series as a whole is called No Gods or Kings. You can find an excerpt of that on my website, nogodsorkings.com. Until next time, everybody, stay classy.
I feel like I should do some kind of like TikTok involving confetti, or like these as confetti or something. Any ideas? Put some comments down below.